How are you guys?
Okay, so Jamie, I'm a little starstruck right now. I'll admit that. So I'm a leader of Girl Up, which is a by girls for girls organization that supports adolescents in the world. And you know a thing or two about using social media to support girls and women's voices. So how can we better support girls and women so they have the same opportunity to raise their voices as boys and men?
I think that what you're doing right now is one of the best ways that we can support one another. Making sure that people get together, that we educate one another, that we talk about what's important to us, that we get involved locally in our communities and in many different ways. When I think about this past election, it's very fascinating because it really inspired a lot of women and young women to start utilizing their voices and finding out what they really need and what they want to expect from the world around them. And it really changed young girls from 4 all the way up to 18 and beyond. And I think now is a really powerful time to use social media for good, rather than allowing it to sort of suck you into a fear of missing out vortex or comparisons, but to utilize it to connect with one another.
Thank you. That was beautiful. In my Girl Up Club in Forest Hills High School, Queens, we advocate for girls not just in the US, but for countries such as Malawi or Guatemala and Uganda. So to make sure that they were able to go to school and have health care and live a life free of violence, we have fundraisers and really try to help these girls as much as we can. So why do you think it's important to support girls and women around the world so that they can live a healthy life?
I think that it's important that as human beings, that as a shared species, we love and care for everybody. I think that it doesn't matter if you're here or in another country or what socioeconomic background that you come from, that it's our duty to help one another. There's major issues in these countries with young women getting their education because they can't even go to school because they don't have things to assist them, sanitary napkins, tampons, things like that for menstruation. That's a huge, huge thing. They can't get an education because they are a woman or a young girl, and that breaks my heart. And there's many opportunities and many places now that are stepping up and leading the charge with that you can get involved in, that are sending over packages and care kits to these countries so that they can attend school and have feminine products. And I think it's also important to recognize that it's not just other countries that need help. We need to be involved, again, on a local level and see, okay, how can we help young women here in New York City or Omaha, Nebraska, where I come from, or Los Angeles, or where you are, who in my community needs help. And what can I do? How can we gather what we're not using or raise money to donate what they might need so they can rise up in their lives for just basic necessities, basic human necessities people don't have here in the United States and in these other countries. Yeah. And it's really important to recognize that a bar of soap and deodorant and toothpaste and these very simple things that we take for granted, that there's a lot of people here that need that and a lot of people there that will never have the opportunity to get it.
Yeah. And especially because social media is like such a huge thing nowadays. There's sort of been an uproar of feminists and people who believe in equality for everyone. So my question is, why do you think the word feminist makes people uncomfortable?
I think that feminist makes people uncomfortable because it's a trigger word for people. I think that when they hear feminist, they think that that means man-hating, or men-hating women who have a really strong agenda, who don't care about equality for all. By definition, feminism means equality. I believe, I call myself a humanist. I want equality for everyone. I see that available in our near future. That is the kind of world that I want to live in. And I think that it's important that we don't get stuck in labels and sub-labels, because that the word feminist can go to many other names and groups and things like that. I think that it's what's important that we stay clear in what it is that we want to achieve and and meet with, again, like-minded people and discuss how to get there. But the idea of that feminism has a bad name, when you start to feel that way, you move out of that word and just get back into the action of doing.
So you're a mother of 2 young sons, beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
So what do you and your husband want to teach them about feminism or equality for the sexes?
I think that it's really important for me, and having 2 young sons, that we teach them love and kindness and generosity, that we teach them hard work and education. By teaching these natural things, by being an example of that, then they naturally learn to become a feminist. They naturally learn by the people around them. And so they've grown up with a mother who is very much a feminist, very much a humanist, very active politically, very active on all different kinds of fronts. And it's really important for me that I acknowledge to them what's going on in our world and the kind of changes that I would like to see, because they're so little, and help them understand that in their terms.
Do you think that they're going to call themselves feminists when they grow up, or
Oh,
hope
yeah.
to?
Hopefully by then, we'll have made some important changes.
And especially because work can be very difficult for women, honestly.
Yes.
There's a lot of categorizing, I would say, between women and men. So I'm 15, and I would love to be a broadcasting journalist when I grow up, because I want to help people get news and learn about what's happening in our world. And media is a very tough industry
Yes.
for girls and women. So you started out your career at a very young age. So what advice would you give to your 15-year-old self?
The advice that I would give to my 15-year-old self, or to any young woman or man, boy, is to have the willingness to work really hard, to have the willingness to persevere, to fail, to make mistakes. When we fail and we make mistakes, we understand where we went supposedly wrong, but it gives us strength. And there's great strength in vulnerability. And it also teaches you the right way for you. It's really important that you educate yourself on what it is that you're passionate about. When you feel that expansion in your heart, then you know that you're moving in the right direction of your field, right? And when you start to feel contraction, like something's off, then that's your instinct telling you okay, maybe I should not lean into this so much. Mm-hmm. And I also recommend getting involved locally, again, and see what you can do on every single level, and try out a lot of different things. And by doing so, I think that from my experience, by doing so, by the willingness to try and fail, I never really gave up the dream, because there was no other choice but to succeed.
I'm definitely going to take that into account, so thank you.
And it's not easy.
Yeah,
it's not easy. If you want to achieve something that you dream about, you just have to keep getting up, and you have to keep getting up. But one thing that I also want to point out that's really important as a woman that wants to rise in an industry is that there's more space at the table for more than just one woman. And I think that there's a lot of competition that takes place. And I think that there's a lot of power in women coming together and young girls coming together to support one another, because you have your own individual footprint and fingerprint, and what you're going to bring to something may be very different than someone else. And so I think it's really important that you get a group of people that you love and support one another in whatever that field is, because it'll give you greater strength as you're going through those tough times.
That's especially why I joined Girl Up, because it's like we constantly empower each other, and we live in a day where girls and women are constantly under the microscope, but are often kept quiet to talk about like health issues.
Yeah.
So you've been open about your struggles with PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome. So why do you think it's important that we break the stigma and talk openly about girls' and women's health issues? Because
we have to. We have to. I think, that it's ridiculous that talking about menstruation is taboo, that if a young woman is in pain, such as I was, I have severe PCOS and endometriosis, and, that was and is very difficult for me, and it made it really difficult for me to have children. And had I had someone to talk to when I was younger, I would have been diagnosed sooner. I would have gotten the help that I needed physically. I would have gotten greater emotional relief. And I think that the sooner that we start, and when I realized that I didn't have anyone to talk to about it, or that it wasn't made, very public, that's when I realized this is crazy. So many young women have this, and if I don't use my voice, it doesn't matter if it's not sexy, it's not glamorous. I'm not trying to be some fertile goddess, even though that's how everybody wants to perceive an actor or someone in on a red carpet as this perfect thing, but it's an illusion. It's not real. And what's the whole purpose of me, as an artist or someone that wants to do good in the world, if I'm not sharing my struggles in a very real manner? Because that's what I do when I'm acting, is just putting it all into that. But I also have to do that in the world as well. And by doing that, it's brought so much more awareness. Lena Dunham, who also has endometriosis and PCOS, is a good friend of mine, and she was a real shoulder for me in speaking up about it. And I think that strength comes in numbers, because when you come forward, then another person comes forward, and then what happens is then more things start to get funded for what we're talking about, and something like these issues are funded and taken care of by birth control. And birth control is the best medicine for it. And now women's health issues are radically under attack. And now more than ever, we need to protect that. We need to protect Planned Parenthood. We need to protect these organizations that are, giving proper care for women and men and all partners. It's just really, really important that we take away stigmas about something that is so natural and so beautiful, so that we can support one another.
Especially since, I'm a freshman in high school, it's like these are the ages that people sort of look up to actors and actresses and really look for an idol or an inspiration. I'm especially grateful for people like you who come out in the truth and try not to perceive that they're completely perfect, because then it makes us seem more normal, and that we all have problems, no matter how much money you have or how many people are inspired by you, that we're all human and we're all one humankind. So that's all the time we have, actually. Thank you so much.
Really,
again.
What you're doing is so beautiful and so important. Thank you.